should Stone Cold Steve Austin have turned heel at the end of this show? Matt?
I think in hindsight, that's an easy question to answer. No.
Yeah, unfortunately, Tom, we're going to agree. It's a no from me too. What do you think?
It's really tough because I think Austin does an amazing job in turning heel. I think he does. It's just in the wrong place. So I was kind of watching it, and about like quite early in the match, Austin is much more vicious in it than he is before. And watching it in hindsight, you were like, oh, it's kind of obvious that he's turned heel. It's like when you notice when Bret Hart turns heel against Austin at WrestleMania 13 that he does it during a certain point in the match. Do you know what I mean? And you can kind of, going back, you can kind of pinpoint it, and you can really feel Austin's desperation as even a bit before it, where you see him like looking in a mirror basically before he walks out, and he looked demonic almost. And I think Austin does everything, and Vince McMahon, to be fair, does everything he can to get himself over as a heel. And The Rock is an incredibly sympathetic babyface fighting against all the odds, like Phil Collins, and he basically just doesn't work, mainly because of the location. So I think the actual execution of it is done really well, but because it's in Texas, so he's never going to get booed there. The other thing that I will also point out, which makes the decision wrong, is ultimately people weren't ready to boo Stone Cold Steve Austin at that point, and that's actually the bigger issue, I think. Well, I guess my point is it's so well done, but it's the right person in the wrong place at the wrong time. And watching it again, JR is absolutely phenomenal on commentary at this point as well, and it's just a real shame that it kind of didn't go on to be. He was great as a heel, and we've watched some of the pay-per-views. Like No Mercy is the one that immediately springs to mind, is one that we watched recently where he's a heel and he's playing it like a bit almost like comedic value. But it's just a shame that if it was done like maybe a year or two later, because obviously Austin as well coming back off of a year of being out as well, so people haven't really had that time to get like used to him or sick of him or whatever. So it's just a real shame that opportunity to turn him heel wasn't done a little bit later in his career. I know there wasn't too much of it left in all fairness afterwards, but yes, it's done very well, but it's just all completely at the wrong time.
So your answer to that really is ultimately no, they shouldn't have done it and maybe waited another year, basically.
Yes.
This wasn't the right place, and also they weren't ready for it anyway.
Yeah.
Matt, what do you think? Because obviously, Tom, you also commented on the fact that the heel turn on the night didn't work. You also then talked about how it didn't work after that in some ways. What do you think? First of all, on the night, and then after that point.
On the night itself, no, it didn't work. There was little sparks in there that it looked like it could have, because there were some slight boos when Stone Cold shook hands with Vince. So it looked like it could have, but again, it was Texas. They wanted him to win the title. Like you said, he'd just come back from injury. So the recipe was there for him to be massively cheered. So I don't think it definitely didn't work on the night. So it was definitely the wrong time to do it. And it was damn sure the wrong place as well. I mean, why the hell choosing to do it in his home state? Just that was just the wrong call. It's interesting that you mentioned, like over the year. I mean, because like I said, again, this was my first year of watching. So I knew Stone Cold as a heel in some respect far more than I knew him as a babyface. And I do think there were some bright spots to this day. Stone Cold versus Kurt Angle is one of my favorite feuds of all time. I think they had some absolute bangers together. Kurt was a great babyface to Stone Cold's really great heel. The two-man power trip when they beat the shit out of the Hardy Boys and Lita, that scars into my brain even to this day. I mean, there's some people don't like it because of the stuff with Lita, but Christ, did he get some heel heat for that? So over the year, like I said, there were some bright spots, but ultimately, no, I don't. I think by the time he did eventually turn back, I don't think he was as popular as he was. And I mean, I get why he chose to do it, because realistically, who else was there for him to work with that was fresh and they hadn't done before, So I completely understand why. But yeah, it's something that didn't work.
I'm going to address a lot of that. So first of all, it doesn't work on the night, obviously. Texas crowd is not willing to boo Austin. It's actually really interesting. It's one of those moments that this is a crowd that's so determined that they're going to have that moment that they don't even care that Austin turned heel. They're so determined they're going to get what they want that they're going to keep cheering for Austin even when he becomes friends with Vince McMahon. It's really interesting, I think. It's a sheer force of will. The fans are like, I don't care. That's it. I don't care. Austin's won. That's all that matters. I've got my moment. They shouldn't have done it, for me, obviously on the night, but also they shouldn't have done it at all. Mainly to the point you made at the end, Matt, which is that Austin was never as popular again. I not too long ago watched Royal Rumble 2002, and And on that show, everything is exactly the same as it was at Royal Rumble 2000, almost exactly, except all of the reactions to everybody is far more muted than they were in Royal Rumble 2000, because everyone's basically in the same spots again. Austin's back as a babyface. I mean, Triple H is a babyface as well, but there's loads and loads of parallels. There's very similar positions a lot of people are in. And specifically, the reaction to Austin is still popular, but it's nowhere near the intensity. It's just completely lost all that real, like, explosiveness, and that is only as a consequence of him becoming a heel in the first place. If he'd never done that, maybe the crowd reactions would have been reduced by the time they did get to Royal Rumble 2002 in exactly the same way. But that's the time when you turn him heel, is when the crowd reactions are starting to wane a little bit. I would say that, I think I said this on the pod not too long ago as well, that the 2001 that he has as a heel is one of his best years ever, Austin. Creatively, some of the stuff he did was fantastic. The stuff with Angle, not just as opponents, but as allies as well, when they were doing all their kind of humorous stuff on SmackDown and Raw, was just brilliant. The match, obviously, with Benoit and Jericho, where Triple H tore his quad, is, a celebrated match at the time. Austin was just carrying the whole product for the invasion. I mean, he pretty much carried the entire product, but that doesn't justify doing it. Just because it was a good quality doesn't justify business-wise doing this thing. It was the wrong decision. And Matt, to your point about who else he's going to work with, well, Kurt Angle was a heel. He could have worked with him. Benoit was still there. Jericho was still there. They could have had these matches lined up. Not only that, but don't forget, they just purchased WCW. If they wanted a load of fresh new options, well, there's a load of them there for you. There was plenty they could still do as a babyface with Steve Austin. And to the WCW thing, that is another issue of this, is that turning Austin heel at a time when WCW are coming in, WCW, you cannot convince this WWE audience can be a good set of babyfaces, because you've just conditioned them for the last 6 years to hate WCW and everything it stands for. It's just not good timing. This is a time when Austin needs to be on Team WWF going into if the WCW are going to come. And I think at this point the plan was for them not to come, which maybe is why they went ahead with the Austin heel turn. But ultimately, just all the timing was wrong. WrestleMania 17 being in Texas, WCW just being bought, and Austin not yet in that position where people were like, we have to boo this guy. I don't like him anymore. In the way Hogan was, for example, in 96 when he turned heel. And genuinely, in the 6 months to a year before that, people have been booing him. People had been booing him as a babyface. So when he turned heel, it was the right timing. This just wasn't. Yeah,
it's just a shame that it kind of went down in the way it did. But like you said, Tinky, it's not due to any effort on behalf of Steve Austin, because he is brilliant. He always was. That's why he's the GOAT. But yeah, it just doesn't quite work, does it?
There is one other thing that I will criticize Steve Austin for, in terms of, maybe not Steve Austin, just everybody really, for who was involved in this, which is that for me, they didn't do the groundwork either to explain why Austin had chosen Vince to turn heel with. Like, he could have turned against The Rock in a bad way using anybody. He could have reached out to The Undertaker and they could have formed an alliance against him. Why form an alliance with Vince?
Well, the other point further to what you say is that Vince doesn't really do anything apart from pull The Rock out, from underneath. So that's the only thing that really happened.
I guess the idea, though, is that he arranged for the no disqualification stipulation before the match as well. So there's that part. But, so for me, there needs to be more of an explanation as to why Austin is willing to forgive the guy that he hates most in the world. Now, I get it. He's laid the groundwork for the heel turn prior to the show, because he's that famous one-on-one interview where the two of them are with Jim Ross, and he says, I've got to beat you, Rock, and I'll do anything. Basically, he's basically telling him, watch out, because I'm going to do whatever it takes to win this, including the subtext is team up with Vince McMahon and screw you over. But I just feel that needed to be better explained. I also think that in the follow-up to this WrestleMania, more about Austin needed to change. So I think it's fine to have kept him just with the black pants and everything, but the night after, he should have come out, and they should have done a callback to the night after WrestleMania 14, when Vince McMahon asked Austin, are you going to do things the easy way or the hard way? And Austin stunned Vince and then asked the fans, if you want me to keep doing it the hard way, give me a hell yeah. And they just absolutely bellow out hell yeah. They should have done something similar to that, where Austin says he's doing things the easy way now, and he comes out in a suit. And not only that, but they should have had him not be confrontational. So when, for example, someone squared up to him, he should have had somebody else do his bidding in the way that Stone Cold Austin would never do. And it should all be in pursuit of the deal that he did with Vince, which is ultimately the deal he does with Vince is, look, Vince, I need you to help me win this match. And Vince saying, well, if you want me to do that, you have to do things my way. And that's how it should have been position for me.
If he came out in a suit, bloody hell, that would have been awesome. If he
That's
did,
what he should have done. And,
yeah.
and you know what? That's what he does. Like, I think it's either the night after WrestleMania 14 or the week after. Austin does come out in a suit, and then rips it off and stuns Vince.
Yeah.
They should call back to it, and Vince be like, "No, you have to wear the suit. That's the deal we've done. Is you are now the corporate champion, in the same way The Rock was in end of '98, early '99. He should have become the corporate champion that Vince always wanted him to be, and that would have been the real way to make him a heel. But instead, they just had him play the same character, just be aligned to Vince. Which how can you expect people to boo that character when that's what Austin has always done? You know, when he first became super popular, he would stun anybody. Like, he didn't care anyway. He stunned Jim Ross. And people loved it.
Oh, God, he did.
I just think that there's a lot of ways in which they didn't. I feel like they tried to have their cake and eat it. They almost like they were like, we want Austin to turn heel, but Austin doesn't really want to change anything about a winning formula. At least at first. I think eventually he decided he needed to be funny and he needed to do stuff that would make him look a bit geeky. But initially it was, we're just tough and we're going to beat the crap out of everybody.
Do you think they wanted him to turn heel, or do you think that Austin wanted to turn heel in this instance, and he was so powerful that he was able to?
I don't think it was a one-way decision. I'm sure everybody agreed to it.
Yeah, I mean, the bit that gets me, though, is the fact that, okay, you know, he turned heel, they give it a go, but then, you know, they had the option with the alliance and everything to make, you know, to keep him a babyface again. They had it given to them on a silver platter. You know, they should have learned from that. But no, that, you know, in traditional WWE fashion, they dug their heels in and thought, nope, we're going to make it happen. And they did it again. That's the bit that, for me, is even more unforgivable. Because, like I said, because they had the chance to correct their mistake, and they chose not to.
I think this heel turn is the reason why they never turned John Cena heel.
Interesting.
I think they realized that this was such a bad idea in the long run. Like, the business never recovered. Business has never recovered since this heel turn. This was the end of the boom period, effectively. I mean, don't get me wrong, they were still doing massive numbers for a good couple of years after this, but they were never quite as high as the numbers prior to this. They were never quite as big as the numbers prior to this. And I think when they had John Cena and they had, I guess, their new Hogan, they were like, there's no way we're doing that again. There's absolutely no way we're taking that risk again, because it might pay off, but ultimately it might not. And John Cena's making us loads of money. Why would we mess with that?
That's really interesting. I'd never thought of that.
So the match itself, what do we think of that, Matt? Why don't you tell us your sort of appraisal of the match?
For me, this is the greatest WWE Championship match I've ever seen, bar none. This is as high as the bar's ever been set for me. It started off with a bang. You know, as soon as, you know, Rock is posing on the turnbuckles, as soon as he jumps down, Steve Austin immediately goes after him, which just shows straight off the bat how badly he wanted to win the championship. And the announcers did a great job of putting that over as well. And we've talked about it so many times before on the pod, but like, there are times where you're watching the guys in the ring, the guys and the girls in the ring, and you could tell that Stone Cold wanted to win the match. Now, they can put on a performance to entertain the fans, and that's great, but at the end of the day, we need to see how badly he wanted to win. And from the start of the match right the way through to the end, you could tell Stone Cold Steve Austin wanted more than anything to win the WWE Championship, and he did everything he possibly could to get it. The match kept building, but halfway through, I was thinking, my God, they were both battered and bloodied already. Stone Cold busting out the old $1 Million Dream I thought was a fantastic callback. The Rock getting the sharpshooter on him, and JR mentioning about the Brett match, and the blood running down his face again looked phenomenal. Steve was super aggressive, pushing the ref and the timekeeper out of the way, and just his mannerisms were great. Even initially when Vince came out, I think people weren't quite sure what to make of it. I mean, Vince definitely got booed, but the sort of finishing sequence, oh my God, I can't heap enough praise on what I think about the finishing sequence. I mean, let's just talk about I got to mention the stunner that Stone Cold hit towards the end, which is the greatest near fall of a stunner I've ever seen. I mean, for a start, the bump that The Rock takes off the stunner is just bloody brilliant. I mean, he always does his, flop like a fish, I've always called it, but my God, does he get some height on that. The way the Stone Cold went to get the cover on him, I mean, he literally dove, onto The Rock, and while he was diving, you could probably hear him thinking, this is it, I've got it. And he dove onto him to get that cover. When The Rock kicked out, He had a load of cheers at that point, and at this point, The Rock didn't have very many cheers throughout the majority of the match. So at that point, people were actually, I think, or at least more of them, were behind him. Now, don't get me wrong, the crowd was still more for Steve, but they were behind him. Then the stuff with the chair, again, just Steve was doing everything he possibly could to try and get the win, which was amazing. And then that finish, I just found it so realistic. Chair to the face, okay, he kicks out, and the look in Stone Cold's eyes was, what the hell have I got to do? Well, so what does he do? Batters him with the chair, and I mean batters him repeatedly with the chair to the point of he cannot get up anymore. He knows that, one or two shots hasn't done it, so he literally was going to hit him repeatedly until he got the win. It was an incredible finish. The drama of the match, I felt, peaked perfectly. I can still hear Paul Heyman and JR on commentary, which I will talk about throughout the show, I thought were fantastic. I can still hear JR in my head, what the hell is this? And then Paul Heyman, it's a new champion. It was great. There has never been a WWE Championship match as good as this, in my opinion.
So you weren't fussed then, Matt? Tom?
It's hard to kind of really say much more, really. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. A great match. You've just basically said everything. The desperation of Austin. He's vicious. In terms of the sharpshooter, as we've said this before, The Rock puts on an absolutely disgusting sharpshooter. But Austin puts on an absolute ripper of a sharpshooter, which is absolutely lovely to see. I was sat there thinking, Brett taught me to do that. I really had a little chat with Brett about that. And like the $1 Million Dream, I loved that as well. The slight kind of downside is the bit when Vince comes out, because it's just abject confusion when he comes out from the crowd. They don't really get it, and that's the one thing. It kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier, but that does detract from the match a little bit. But you nailed it on the head, Matty, when The Rock kicks out after the chair shot and he's almost got the fans on side with him, and that is absolutely superb work. And The Rock plays his role in this match absolutely perfect as a kind of underdog babyface to the dastardly heel Austin, even though the crowd are reacting the opposite way. So it's quite an unusual match to watch. And the kick out after that stunner and that flop sell from The Rock, the look of disbelief on Austin's face is absolutely, he tells an entire story in that facial expression. It's amazing. JR, as you said, JR is amazing on commentary. The bit where he says they may as well urinate on The Rock is a wonderful bit of commentary from JR.
For me, I think this is a great match, but I do think it is a little bit sullied by the end. I do struggle with the end because it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And like you said, Tom, Vince doesn't really do much. Not in the match, anyway. Yes, he's arranged for it to be no disqualification. But in the match, all he does really is, he said, pull The Rock out once and hand Austin a chair. And that's kind of it. Like, it doesn't really do anything else. So it doesn't feel like there's enough reason for Austin to want Vince to be there and to do what he does. Like, he doesn't get enough out of it. He could have done everything he did without the man ever coming to the ring. Yeah, for me, the end is a little bit anticlimactic. And also, it's the heel ending again. That is, again, a problem for me. And as much as the fans, as I said, the fans were determined to have their moment, they didn't get it, did they? They didn't get the moment. They didn't get the absolute euphoric, Austin's won the title again. Yes, thank God for that. The fans in the arena, at least.
Didn't they?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it was as pure adulation as it would have been had none of this heel stuff happened. If none of the heel stuff happened, it'd have been almost 100% everyone going bonkers. As it was, people were still trying to go bonkers, but they didn't. Their heart wasn't in it. You know what I mean? They were just trying to force the issue. So I think that does detract from it somewhat. And I said it when we did WrestleMania 15. I think the match at WrestleMania 15 is the most realized match between the two because of the end of this match. If this match had just finished in a clean way, for example, or the heel turn had been more effective, I would be saying this is by far and away a better match than that one. But it's just that end doesn't do it any favors, and it just distracts ever so slightly from it. It's a great match. The thing I loved most about it, you touched upon it, Matt, was with Austin and the way he's showing he wanted to win. What I loved about watching these two again, which I forgot really, is just their interaction in the ring, like the fact that you can see them saying, "Are you?" Like when they're kicking each other and stuff, and you're like, that's just great. That's what an actual fight would be like. These two people actually dislike each other and they want to win the match. And you're just like, these guys are in the moment. They are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're selling the idea that they want to win this match more than anything else, and they are focused 100% on that. It does take you away. It just takes you into that moment, and you're not thinking about it like a piece of art anymore. You're thinking about it like a sporting contest, which is the ultimate point of all of this stuff. stuff. So loved it. Loved the action. It was a great match. Great match. It's just the end slightly dampened my enthusiasm for it.
I think these two is the perfect pairing in a ring. I can't think of any other set of wrestlers that have better chemistry with another person than these two. I think they're absolutely wonderful. In terms of their best match, I really like their match at Backlash after WrestleMania 15. I think that match is absolutely tremendous as well. I mean, that match is amazing.
As much as I do love this match, it's certainly not perfect. It's, you know, it's important to put that it's definitely not perfect. And it's one of the things that I didn't realize at the time until I saw an interview with Stone Cold and he pointed it out, you know, where they had the sharpshooters on each other and they're getting rope breaks, which, you know, no DQ. Okay, I mean, again, it's in hindsight, you know, it's only a small thing, but it is still there.